We've talked already in previous lectures about how we learn gender and alluded to some of the lessons that most children learn about what it means to be male and what it means to be female. Newman cites to Audrey's study that there's some correlation between gender expression and the amount of testosterone the female fetus is exposed to, and this would affect the level of expression of masculine or feminine traits as adults. Sociologist Richard Audrey studied 351 adult women whose pregnant mothers had been entered in the Child Health and Development Study between 1960 and 1969. Regular specimens of amniotic fluid were taken from these women and recorded. Hence, Audrey could determine the levels of hormones his sample of women were exposed to before they were born. He found that those women who were exposed to higher levels of testosterone as fetuses exhibited more masculine traits and behaviors as adults than women who were exposed to lower levels of testosterone. He found these differences even in women whose own mothers had strongly encouraged them to be feminine as children. He concluded from this finding that biological predispositions can limit the effect of gender socialization. So, in essence, Audrey's study points out that the effect of socialization may not be so great on gender expression. I don't want you to think that Audrey's study is the end word on socialization and gender, though. Other researchers completely disagree with Audrey's conclusion. The seminal study that many researchers will point to was done by Margaret Mead. She studied multiple and diverse societies and concluded that gender differences were cultural in origins and not biological. Now, there's some controversy about Mead's work, which is a little disappointing that Newman doesn't point out that her data collection methods may have maintained biases in that she sought what she was looking for. But at the same time, Mead's work is important and deemed by many to be valid. It shows that definitions of the natural tendencies of men and women aren't necessarily universal. The vast majority of societies may be dominated by men, but the fact that there are exceptions, no matter how rare, shows at the very least that biological predispositions, if they exist at all, can actually be modified or overcome by culture. So, just how powerful is culture in the area of gender training? One of the seminal studies is Rubin's 1974 study, where he observed subjects who were asked to hold a baby. The baby was named either Beth or Adam and dressed either in pink or blue. It happened to be the same baby, but of course the people holding the baby did not know that. When dressed in pink, they treated it as fragile, offered it dolls, described it as having a soft cry and being delicate. When dressed in blue, the infant was described as strong, alert, hardy, and coordinated. Of course, it was the same baby, just dressed differently. In another study by Rubin and his colleagues, he put a different spin on the same idea. 30 first-time parents were asked to describe their recently born infants, less than 24 hours old, and those with daughters used words like tiny, soft, fine-featured, and delicate to describe them. Sons were seen as strong, alert, hardy, and coordinated. A replication of this study 2 decades later found that U.S. parents continue to perceive their infants in gender stereotyped ways, although to a lesser degree than in the 1970s. We think a good deal in terms of the kinds of toys children play with as a way in which they are socialized. But clothing reinforces social cues and roles as well. This is about how we dress girls and boys differently. Their motives are different. Girls get butterflies and flowers. Boys get action figures, dinosaurs, and fierce animals. The materials are different. Girls get frills and much more delicate types of materials. Boys' clothing are functional and sturdy. Girls' clothing is more fitted and shows more skin. Dresses show off legs, and their clothing discourages rough play. Girls have softer colors. They're muted. They have yellows, pinks, and pastels. Boys tend to have clothing that is more vibrant in color, primaries such as blue, red, or green. So this begs the question, what are the implications for these decisions on how children are dressed? What are the messages that children learn just by wearing clothes or seeing other children wear clothes that are different from those associated with their sex or gender? Children are learning things all the time from subtle cues that society sends them, and clothing is one way society transmits these cues. So again, let's revisit that question about raising children as gender neutral and trying to minimize the amount of social cues that a child is given about what it means to be feminine or masculine. The essential question, of course, is whether we can actually raise a child gender neutral. Some parents believe that to diminish the heavy social emphasis on gender distinctions, some parents and child development experts advocate gender-neutral socialization, bringing up boys and girls to have both male and female traits and behaviors. Advocates for gender-neutral socialization see no biological reason, except for a few anatomical and reproductive differences, to distinguish between what males and females can do. Yet, if a girl acts like a boy, she's considered a tomboy. So then if she does so, then what about the effect of that label? And if a boy acts like a girl, he's considered a sissy, or perhaps even a more derogatory label. And then what's the effect of that label?